Senator Omidvar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses for being here. I want to focus on the role of the media as an enabler of Islamophobia. And I'm going to quote a study that was cited by Haroon Siddiqui in an article in the Literary Review of Canada, where he notes that 75% of people in the West rely on the media for their information about Muslims. What many of us know about Islam, or what we think we know, is filtered primarily through the media. And without a doubt, the media functions as the most powerful and influential conveyor of Islam. Do you agree or disagree with those observations? Perhaps Professor Jiwani and then the others.
I totally agree with those observations. And in fact, having read that same article and having followed how, in fact, the coverage in the Toronto Star changed when Haroon Siddiqui was there as editor versus what happened after is clearly telling. So definitely, the media totally influences. But I think one of the things I would add to that is that within the younger generation, it's not the mainstream print media that is the influence. It's the social media. So how, in fact, social media then borrows from that, condenses it, and puts it out into these little bite-sized pieces that are like very consumable, makes it go further and further. So definitely, and this is where again, classic works like Edward Said's Orientalism shows, in fact, that many of the stereotypes and tropes are still there. They haven't changed.
Professor Mouallem, you're a journalist, so let me ask.
Yeah.
Let me ask
Not
you,
a professor, but
Mr. Mouallem,
Oh.
honorary title. There
I'll
you go.
pretend that I'm a
Yeah,
professor.
there
though.
you go. You're a journalist, and I think we all know that talk radio is uniquely is
Toxic.
a unique. It feeds and proliferates Islamophobia and other forms of hate in a particularly prolific manner. I host a podcast, and I interviewed a journalist, Supriya Dwivedi, who actually left the talk show platform because her own organization did not do enough to protect her. And I'm sure the story is common, to protect her from the onslaught of hate that she received. Do you think media organizations, whether they are traditional media or new media, do you think media organizations do enough to protect journalists and columnists?
I can only speak to mainstream media, to traditional media. I would say no, I don't think they do. I don't think that there's a common adage that that it comes with the job, that hate mail comes with the job, that threatening letters come with the job. But I think what is lost on a lot of the employers and the management in traditional media is that the nature of these threats has changed. They've become more targeted, more personal, more detailed, more threatening, and they've also become more targeted of people's identity, whether it be because they are women, or and or brown, and or Muslim or Black. The nature of this has become a lot more frightening, and yet there is still this assumption, this attitude that's quite prevalent, that it should just be a part of the job. And it's not just at the upper management of newsrooms. I think it is also within the RCMP as well, and within police services, who are quick to dismiss these threats as if, again, they are not to be taken seriously. Well, they are, and eventually I think we're going to learn through the tragic outcome of an event just how seriously these threats should be taken.
You have a little bit more time. So, question to all three of you, very brief question, but hopefully you have time to answer it. the Islamophobia summit that was held in 2020, I think. What has changed since then? Has the needle shifted at all from your point of view?
It was in 2021.
21, yeah.
And so it has been just over a year. I believe it was in 2021. I might be wrong. At least since the recommendations. Not much has changed, but not much time has passed. This is, I think, going to be a generational effort. One thing that I will say is that over the past few years, the awareness of Islamic Heritage Month has grown and grown. Each year, I see it become more prominent, see more schools, public schools or other schools celebrating it, and just making it known. So I do think there is something positive in the air that is happening at a local level at the very least. That that gives me, I guess, reason for optimism.
Thank you. And Mr. Afan, you mentioned, and I was quite taken by your witness testimony when you noted that your local mosque in Ottawa engages with other religions, like a Christmas fair, etc. Are you aware of interfaith efforts that provide a structure to these kinds of exchanges, and to what extent are interfaith conversations important in dealing with Islamophobia?
I will not comment on everybody else, but like I know about our community, what it is doing. It is very helpful, and it's the media what plays an important role, the local media. Even though like the social media has more effect, but you'll be surprised when you go to these small towns. Our mosque is in a small, is in Ottawa, but it's in Cumberland, in a small town. So when we were buying that place and going to open the mosque, there was a very huge negativity there. People were afraid and they didn't want it. So we worked with the local media there, and we opened everything up for the people, and they're holding now their community meetings and Christmas market, and even like their summer markets there in the gym, which we provided to them. So we do hold a lot of interfaith dialogues with other, like as I mentioned in my statement, that we are one of the organization who has a very long held interfaith conference in Canada. It's been like held for many years now, where people from other religions have been invited to talk about their similarities. So it does help a lot, and especially when you go to the small towns, where you'll be surprised that many people do not even know about Islam. They have no idea what the Muslims are, even at this point. Like I met an MP from the small town a couple of years ago, and told him about the Ramadan and Iftar, and they didn't have any idea. So it's very important that the media and interfaith dialogues happen in those small towns, so we can teach the people from those towns what Islam is. The only thing they know about Islam is from the media, and it's the terror. They're related with the terrorism. So that is what. Sorry.
Thank you. Professor Jiwani, did you have anything to add? Or?
I just want to say one thing, which is that oftentimes it's people who are victimized that have to do this kind of work. And that often sort of like surprises me, because I remember with the Ahmadiyya community, they had a wonderful initiative in Montreal where they invited people to their homes for dinner. And part of it was to sort of like basically get sort of, shake up or remove that whole tenor or that appearance of this sort of like the mystique around being different and the terror narrative. But I, because I've worked so much on violence against women and those areas, and seeing racism and Islamophobia as forms of violence, I'm left wondering how much of this initiative and impetus is left on the victims of that kind of violence to do that work of educating, rather than the state doing that work, or rather than institutions doing that work, or being mandated to do that work. So I wanted to leave the committee with that, because I think this is an issue that is part of the whole sort of structural element underpinning Islamophobia. We need to account for the way in which relations of power are being perpetuated in this way.
Thank you.